It started with dusting shelves. Not drama. Not suspicion. Just me, a microfiber cloth, and a lazy Sunday afternoon. The kind where you finally get around to the things you've ignored for weeks, like the top of the office bookshelf where our cookbooks and tax folders collected more dust than use. I was halfway through wiping down a stack of old culinary magazines when I knocked over an empty shoebox we used to store spare chargers. It landed with a soft thud, and something inside rattled. I bent down, popped the lid, and there it was, a phone. Old, scratched, definitely not mine. And not Nathan's either, or at least not the one I knew. At first, I assumed it was one of his old work phones. He used to freelance for a tech firm before switching to consulting. But curiosity made me tap the screen. It lit up. No passcode, just a soft buzz and a cluster of unread messages. I shouldn't have looked, but I did. The first message preview stopped me cold. Last night was everything. I still taste you. Can't wait until we don't have to hide anymore. It was from Rebecca, my best friend. No, my sister in everything but blood. The maid of honor at my wedding. The person who cried with me when my father passed. The person who held my hand the day I signed the lease on my first kitchen space. Her name was at the top of dozens of texts. Some sweet, some explicit. All of them unmistakably intimate. I sat down on the floor, phone in one hand, cloth in the other, and stared at the screen like it might change its mind. Like if I blinked hard enough, the messages would vanish, and everything would go back to the way it was that morning when my biggest concern was whether to serve duck confit or mushroom risotto for next week's tasting menu. Instead, the screen brightened again with a new message. Should we tell her after the party next month? I feel awful, but she'll understand eventually. Eventually, it was that word that broke something in me. Eventually, I was going to be the one left in the rubble of their love story. Eventually, they were going to paint themselves as victims of timing and passion. Eventually, I was supposed to understand. But I wasn't angry. Not yet. Just alert. Because this was no longer about heartbreak. This was about precision. And I knew a thing or two about timing, balance, and presentation. They wanted to wait until after the party to tell me. I had a better idea. I'd invite them to dinner instead. And I'd serve something unforgettable. I spent the next 4 days planning the menu. Not a menu for just any dinner, but for the dinner. One that would look elegant on the surface, familiar even, but layered with truth beneath every word, every course, every bite. I told Nathan I wanted to host a casual get-together for old time's sake, just the 4 of us. He blinked, surprised, but smiled quickly. That sounds nice. We haven't all had dinner together in a while. No, we hadn't. Not since before the lies. He offered to help. I told him not to worry. I had it covered. Then I texted Rebecca. Hey, thinking of doing a cozy little dinner at home. Just you, me, the guys. Intimate. This Friday. You in? She replied within minutes. Of course. Been too long. The heart at the end made me laugh out loud. I also reached out to Michael, her husband. Sweet, quiet Michael. The kind of man who still opens the car door and doesn't notice when his wife spends 30 minutes texting someone in the bathroom. He replied, wouldn't miss it. Been craving your food? They had no idea what they were walking into. That night, I opened a fresh notebook and labeled the first page, Menu, Revelation Night. I started listing courses. Each dish would be inspired by a detail from the messages I'd read. Each one symbolic, specific, subtle enough not to raise suspicion, until it was too late. Appetizer, charred peach crostini, the gallery parking lot. A reference to the first place they hooked up, according to Rebecca's text. Can't stop thinking about that night behind the art gallery. Soup, midweek mushroom bisque, because Wednesdays were their secret meetup day, always under the guise of yoga or strategy sessions. Entree, salt-crusted sea bass, Portland weekend. They'd taken a trip together in January, told their spouses it was for a work conference. One message from Nathan. That hotel bed made me forget the world. I'd live in that moment forever. I copied that exact line onto the personalized menus I was printing, camouflaged under the entree description in faint cursive font. Dessert. I called it the final bite. A dark chocolate torte with blood orange glaze, dusted with freeze-dried raspberries. On the back of each dessert menu, I printed a small quote. Nothing poetic, just this. Eventually, she'll understand. Because they needed to understand something too. I wasn't the fool they thought they were tiptoeing around. I was the chef, and I knew exactly what I was serving. Friday arrived with a deceptive calm. The table was set, ivory linens, vintage glassware, flickering tea lights in brass holders. I used the good plates, the ones we'd saved for anniversaries and holidays. Every menu sat folded on top of each napkin, printed in warm cream cardstock with cursive flourishes that gave no hint of what hid beneath the surface. Nathan complimented the setup. "You went all out, huh?" I smiled. "It's a special night." Rebecca and Michael arrived right on time. She was wearing a slate blue wrap dress I'd seen her wear on her anniversary once. A little overdressed for a simple dinner. Nathan opened the door, hugged her too tightly, and whispered something in her ear. I saw her eyes flick toward me as she laughed. She wasn't scared. Yet. Michael brought wine. Of course he did. A 2014 Cabernet I'd once mentioned I loved. It was thoughtful, generous. He kissed my cheek and said, "We're lucky to have your cooking tonight." Rebecca hasn't stopped talking about it. I guided them to the dining room, casually gesturing toward the menus. "I printed something fun for tonight," I said. "Each dish has a little inspiration note beneath it. Thought I'd lean into my creative side." They laughed. Michael opened his menu and nodded. "This looks amazing." Rebecca froze. I watched her eyes scan the lines slowly, then lock on the words, "The Gallery Parking Lot, October 14th. Her fingers twitched. I didn't say a word. We sat. I served the first course, charred peach crostini with rosemary mascarpone and balsamic pearls. Everyone made polite conversation, though Rebecca's smile started to falter. She didn't touch her food. Nathan looked tense but tried to act normal, cracking a joke about Michael's tie. Michael chuckled. Rebecca stared into her wine. Second course, mushroom bisque. I introduced it with a smile. "This one's called Midweek Memory. Creamy, earthy, kind of like a secret." Nathan dropped his spoon. Michael laughed. "Very poetic, Liv." I caught Rebecca a glance at him with something like pity, or maybe guilt. She pushed her soup away, hands tight around her glass. By the time I brought out the entree, Nathan looked pale. Sea bass, salt-crusted, blood orange reduction. I laid the plates down carefully. "Tonight's signature," I said, "inspired by a foggy weekend in Portland." Rebecca whispered something under her breath. Nathan cleared his throat. Michael, still clueless, smiled at the clever theme. "You should open your own place," he said. "This is better than half the restaurants downtown." I looked directly at Nathan. "I've thought about it." Rebecca looked like she might be sick. And we still hadn't reached dessert. I let the silence settle before bringing out the final course. Nathan and Rebecca were visibly unraveling by now. She had barely touched her entree. Nathan had stopped making eye contact entirely. Michael, bless him, still hadn't pieced it together, though I could see confusion beginning to bubble beneath his polite exterior. He kept glancing at his wife, then at Nathan, then back to me. "I hope you saved room," I said cheerfully. "Dessert is always my favorite part." I returned from the kitchen carrying 4 identical plates. Rich dark chocolate torte, delicately sliced, each resting in a pool of blood orange glaze. A few freeze-dried raspberries scattered on the rim. Balanced, bold, beautiful. I placed one in front of each guest, then handed them their final menu card. Thinner than the others, pale gray with just one quote printed on the back. "Eventually she'll understand." Our Rebecca saw it first. Her eyes widened. She snatched the card up, flipped it, scanned the font again, like it might vanish if she blinked hard enough. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. Nathan's jaw tightened. He grabbed his card, flipped it, then slowly looked at me. That's when Michael spoke. "This is all kind of weird, right?" he asked, a nervous laugh creeping into his voice. "I mean, what's going on with the menu names?" I turned to him. Calm, steady. "I'm glad you asked." I reached into my apron pocket and placed a phone on the table. Not my phone, not his. Nathan's second phone. Rebecca went ghost white. "I found this while cleaning," I said, gently pushing the phone toward Michael. "Didn't know what it was at first, but then I read everything. Thought you might want to read it too." Michael furrowed his brow, picked up the phone, and tapped the screen. The messages lit up instantly. No passcode, no barrier. Just months of history. Rebecca's name at the top. Explicit texts, nicknames, promises, hotel reservations. Attachments. I didn't say another word. Nathan stood up too quickly, knocking over his glass. "Liv, listen, I can explain." I'd sit down if I were you, I said, still smiling. You'll want to hear the rest of the meal. Michael was still scrolling. His hand was shaking now. Rebecca, he said, voice low and dangerous. What the hell is this? She was frozen, speechless, her carefully curated persona cracking in real time. Nathan opened his mouth again, but I cut him off. This isn't a conversation, I said. This is a course. It has a beginning, a middle. I gestured toward the plates, and now the final bite. I stood, picked up my napkin, folded it neatly. Thank you all for coming. And then I walked out, leaving them to chew on the truth in silence. I didn't slam the door. I didn't shout down the hallway or cry in the bathroom or collapse in some kind of cinematic heap. That's not who I am. Instead, I walked into the kitchen, poured myself a glass of wine, and opened the back door. The night air was cool, crisp, quiet. I sat on the steps, listened to the distant hum of the streetlights, and waited. Inside, I could still hear muffled voices. Michael demanding answers, Nathan raising his voice, Rebecca sobbing. I didn't move. I didn't need to. The storm had already landed. I had simply handed them the forecast. It wasn't long before I heard the front door swing open, heavy footsteps on the walkway, then silence. A few seconds later, Michael appeared around the side of the house. His face was pale, eyes hollow, holding the phone like it was contaminated. He started, but stopped himself. I didn't know, he finally whispered. I nodded. I know. He stood there for a long moment, gripping the railing like he needed it to stay upright. How long? Months, I said softly. Since before the Portland trip. He closed his eyes. I didn't want to believe it, he muttered, but you put it right in front of us. I didn't want denial to be an option, I said, for either of us. Michael sat beside me on the step, the weight of it all crashing over him. He didn't cry, and neither did I. We just stared out into the dark together, breathing. After a while, he asked, What now? For me? I said, I'm done. And Nathan? I looked at him. He'll be out of the house by Monday. Michael nodded slowly. I don't know what I'm going to do. I rested a hand on his shoulder. Whatever you choose, you won't be doing it blind. He left quietly. I never saw him look back. Rebecca and Nathan? They didn't come back into the dining room. They left separately, I later found out. Rebecca in an Uber. Nathan with his tail between his legs, texting me from the car, messages I didn't open. I slept well that night. For the first time in weeks, there was no secret lurking in my house. No lies brewing beneath the surface. Just peace. And a chocolate torte I didn't even bother wrapping up. The fallout came quickly, faster than even I expected. By Monday, Nathan had moved into a temporary Airbnb. He didn't fight me on it. I think a part of him knew he didn't have the right. His text messages came in like clockwork. Apologies, justifications, desperate appeals. I didn't reply. Rebecca? She went underground, blocked me, blocked Michael, removed her social accounts. But the group chats didn't lie. Our mutual friends, our brunch crew, the other moms from our community garden, they all heard what happened. No one asked for my side. They already knew. Some sent messages quietly. I can't believe it. I'm so sorry. You handled that dinner with grace I didn't know was possible. One of them simply wrote, You're a chef, and you served them exactly what they deserved. I didn't need a standing ovation. The silence from Rebecca and Nathan was applause enough. Michael filed for separation. I found out through a mutual friend. He'd left their house, just like he said he might, and was staying with his brother. His message to me was brief but honest. You didn't just expose them. You freed me too. Meanwhile, I buried myself in work. For the first time in months, I cooked for myself. Real cooking. Not just prep for clients or friends, but the kind of creative play I hadn't allowed myself since culinary school. I experimented with bitterness, acid, smoke. I designed a new tasting menu called Reckoning. Not for sale, just for me. Then came an opportunity. A small storefront that used to be a wine bar in Capitol Hill was going up for lease. I toured it on a whim. Big windows, brick walls, space for a 12-seat chef's table and an open kitchen. The name came to me before I'd even made it back to the car. Revelations. I signed the lease a week later. And as word spread that I was launching my own spot, something funny happened. People started talking again. Not just friends. Local blogs, foodies. One write-up called it Seattle's most anticipated restaurant, born from the ashes of betrayal and served with silence. I never confirmed anything, but the story was already on the menu. 6 months later, on the night of Revelation's grand opening, the dining room was packed. The tables gleamed under warm pendant lights. The smell of citrus poached halibut and seared duck with star anise filled the air. My staff moved with quiet precision, and I stood at the open kitchen pass, calm, focused, fully in my element. Every seat was reserved. The wait list was over 100 names long, but table 6 caught my eye. It was Michael. He came alone, dressed in charcoal gray, sitting with his hands folded, his posture relaxed in that way only someone who has finally let go can manage. He didn't say much. He didn't have to. When I brought out his dessert myself, he looked up and smiled. "You named it after that night." I nodded. It felt right. He looked down at the dish. Dark chocolate torte, blood orange glaze, freeze-dried raspberries, full circle. "You know," he said quietly, "some people burn everything to the ground after betrayal." I met his eyes. "I used it as fuel." He smiled. "I think you fed the whole city with it." I laughed softly, turned back to the kitchen, and moved on to the next table. Nathan and Rebecca? Their relationship didn't last long. Turns out trust doesn't rebuild well on a foundation of shared deceit. I heard they tried living together for a bit, tried to make it seem like it was meant to be. But the truth has a funny way of showing up at the table, even when you don't set a place for it. Last I heard, Nathan had left the city. Rebecca moved in with her sister out in Spokane. Neither of them ever contacted me again. And that's fine. Because I wasn't waiting for an apology. I wasn't holding space for closure. I had built something better, not from spite, not from pain, but from precision, from grace, from the kind of quiet that isn't weakness. It's strategy. I look around my restaurant now and I see people sharing meals, holding hands, laughing over candlelight. They don't know the full story of the name printed on the window, but they feel it. In the menu, in the mood, in the weight of truth carried lightly. And that's enough, because this is the final course. And I plated it perfectly. And that's how I learned. Betrayal doesn't always deserve a breakdown. Sometimes it deserves a 4-course reveal. Ever uncovered a betrayal and turned it into something better? Share your story in the comments. Like, subscribe to EN Reddit Story for more quiet but deadly real revenge tales, and send this to someone who knows how to serve cold truth.